What's up, Ant City, and welcome back to yet another Xenoverse 3 video. By the time you're watching this, Battle Hour probably has come and gone already, so some of this might be outdated, what I'm going to talk about here, but it depends on how much the information they actually give us about the game. But regardless, I still want to make this video and put it out, because I'm sure they're not going to cover everything I talk about in this video, which obviously, if you've seen the title and thumbnail, today we're going to be talking about the more story-focused stuff that I think Xenoverse 3 should be adding. Again, if there's any other things we learned at Battle Hour already, I'm sure I have videos of that already up. We'll see, but as of right now, I don't know anything. So pre-Battle Hour, this is where my mind's at. But anyway, let's just go straight in. So first thing I think we need is, and anyone who's played Xenoverse 1 and 2 knows this, the Xenoverse 2 intro. Man, it was just so disappointing booting up the game and just getting an ad for like the time patrol. I remember back then I was even coping that intro was just for the beta. I mean, obviously I was a lot younger, so I didn't really understand how these things worked, but I was like, no, I think they might just have that for the beta, and the final game will have something better, because the Xenoverse 1 intro is awesome. I love the Xenoverse 1 intro. Like, every time I play the game, every time I boot it up, I sit there and watch it. Xenoverse 2, I skip through it as fast as I can, because it's just a little, like, it's goofy, yeah, but I don't think that should have been the intro every time you boot up the game. Dragon Ball games are known for having like these cool like animated intros with an original song, like this song that really gets you pumped and going. Like Xenoverse 1's, it had a remix of Chala Hechala, which I mean, even they just pulled it from Battle of Gods, but even then, like, it was still hype seeing that the animation with the song, even if it was taken from something else. Either way, it was really sick. Just hearing a remix of Chala Hechala with that animated opening, dude, it was so sick. So I think Xenoverse 3, that's the first thing. Please give us a better intro, some sort of animated intro with, I would like an original song, but even if it's just like a remix of like Limit Break X Survivor or something like that would be really cool. Next thing I've got on my list is giant battles. So obviously Xenoverse 2 does technically have giant battles with, like, you know, you can fight like Great Ape Vegeta and Nappa in the story mode, that sort of thing. But specifically what I'm referring to is the way Ultimate Tenkaichi handled them, and more so in presentation, not in gameplay. Because when you fight a Great Ape in Xenoverse versus Ultimate Tenkaichi, the scale feels so different. Like, Ultimate Tenkaichi made the Great Apes feel like, oh my god, this is like a giant. Like, this thing is massive and it's a huge threat to me. Like, you have to sit there and like punch its hands. I think there's a scene when you're fighting Baby where you like run up his arm and flip him over. It's obviously a reference to GT. But like there's so much, like, with Ultimate Tenkaichi, they did so much to really make those giants feel massive. So I think having segments like that where you're fighting giants, you could obviously, with Xenoverse 3, they could do so much more than the way Ultimate Tenkaichi did it, where it's just kind of like on this platform and you just punch its hands until you hit like the next part of the next phase of the battle or whatever. But I think something like that, to just make like some sort of dedicated giant battle like sequence to make the Great Apes and stuff feel bigger, would be really cool. Because they even, in Ultimate Tenkaichi, they even had like Meta Cooler Core and stuff that you could fight. And even at the end of the game, spoilers for Ultimate Tenkaichi if you haven't played it, at the end of the hero mode, you fight Shinron, which is sick. But we'll talk more on that a little bit later. But right now, with giant battles, I just think doing more to make the Great Apes feel massive would be cool. Because Xenoverse 2, like, it's fine, but I don't know, Ultimate Tenkaichi, replaying that, I was like, yo, these giant battles are really sick. Another thing from Ultimate Tenkaichi is fully voiced lines in the cutscenes. So I don't think they need to do this for every cutscene in the game, just because obviously, you know, there's so many voices for your characters that you can pick from, and, you know, you'd have to sit there and have every single voice actor read the entire script that you would have for the custom characters. But I think stuff like, you know, like the final boss, like Xenoverse 1 and 2 both do this. Like, the final boss, your character does a Kamehameha. I think at like the end of the game, or like maybe pivotal moments, giving your characters a spoken line. Because Xenoverse 2 even had a thing where there's like a dialogue box that pops up in the most recent DLC, which at this point of me recording is Future Saga Chapter 3. When you go to start it, your character gets a dialogue box. And I was like when I first saw that, I was like, wait a minute. That's the first time a character ever has like their own dialogue box. Like, that's kind of crazy to think about that. You know, the main appeal of the Xenoverse games, you never have your own dialogue box until that moment. And I was like, that's kind of wild. So I think having certain lines, not, like I said, it doesn't have to be the whole game, but maybe certain pivotal moments in the story, or just like the very end, having like at least like a paragraph of spoken lines. I think that would be really cool and really, really immersive. Next thing I've got is quick time events. So this is something like obviously Ultimate Tenkaichi has these, but I think it's just a good way to like immerse yourself. I think the best example I can think of is the Storm games, the Naruto Storm games. Those games did quick time events really, really well, and it made you feel so much more immersed into what was going on. So this could be like just during like certain cutscenes or like during certain fights. Like at certain points of the fight, you just get like a quick time event, which can, you know, maybe do it like, kind of like Kakarot, where Kakarots were very simple. You would just like press B after breaking an opponent's stamina, and then you would do like this really, really cool like punch on like Vegeta, or like Frieza is one I can think of too. Where it's like these really, really cool like zoom in animated shots. I think something like that in Xenoverse would be really cool, especially if it's your character. Imagine how cool you're gonna feel. Like your character is doing some shit that looks that crazy. Dude, like that'd be so sick. So I think having quick time events in some capacity, and I want these quick time events to like matter, because there's been so many recent games, like, you know, Sonic games is one I can think of, where even if you like fail a quick time event, it just doesn't matter. I think for these, you gotta like earn it. I think having quick time events being a little more difficult and something you really gotta earn would be cool. But just make it like, don't make it something like, oh, if you missed a quick time event, you have to like restart the battle. Kind of like Ultimate Tenkaichi would do that, where you have to redo that sequence. Don't make them required. I think they should be more optional, kind of like Kakarot's. But if you do get it, you get a really cool reward with like the really cool cutscene and stuff. I think that's how they should handle quick time events. But I don't know, just as a gamer, I think quick time events are cool, and I always love seeing the big games. So I think bringing those back like Ultimate Tenkaichi had would be cool. Another thing that I really miss from the old Dragon Ball games is loading screen mini games. So like even Ultimate Tenkaichi had like a little small one where you would just like shoot the capsules on the screen, kind of like whatever. But I know like the old Budokai games, like you would have to spin your controller and like grow Cyberman, or like Gohan would be pulling the Z sword out of the ground. Little things like that would be cool. Only thing with that one though is like, the problem with modern consoles is like loading screens aren't really as big of an issue anymore. Most games load like pretty instantly now, so maybe they don't add those, but they could even just like, I don't know, like somewhere in the menu, just like add the mini games playable. Because that was one thing with like the older, like the Budokai games too, is if you're, because like for example, like the HD collection of the Budokai games, those ones load so fast you barely have any time to play the mini games. So just like add it in like a menu somewhere. It's like, oh, you can just like have fun and just messing with the mini games, try to get like beat your high score or something like that. Just some sort of like little mini games like that would be fun. I said loading screen, but again, like it's not really like as big of a deal now, unless the game does have like longer loading screens, which if that's the case, or even if it's short loading screens, just add like some sort of thing to do on there. I think it just kind of keeps you invested. Now this is a major one that I know a lot of people have talked about for Xenoverse 3, but I also agree. I think a choice-based story would be really fun and make this really unique. So I bring this up because in Xenoverse 2, there was the Infinite History DLC, which added this Tokipedia mode. I'm gonna call it Tokipedia because that's where you can view the actual like map, the road map of the choices. In Xenoverse 2, it's very simple. It's just based on like whatever mentor you pick. You either work and like help out Few, or you go against him, and like there's different scenes I could play based on your mentor. I think that was really cool, but I think the main thing is just at certain points in the story, just let us choose. And the main thing that I've seen people talk about, myself included in the past, is let us decide at points in the story. Let's say like Few is still a villain here, right? Let us decide if we're gonna work with the Time Patrol still for this mission, or if we're gonna work against the Time Patrol. I'm gonna just say work with the Time Breakers, because that's what like Toa, Mira, and them are called. So I think having different choices like that would give the story mode so much more replay value, first of all, because you could see if they really want to go crazy, they could Shadow the Hedgehog it, where like every different like path you could take. So like imagine you could do like all Time Patrol, but then one mission you pick like Time Breaker, and then that leads to like, obviously not like a different ending, because Shadow the Hedgehog has like 10 endings, but like 365 paths you can lead to those endings. I think Xenoverse doing something along those lines, maybe not as crazy, but just, you know, having the choice-based story in general, so that you can lead to different things at the end. And I think what would be really cool, they could even tie it to certain rewards. So imagine like, for example, you do like the whole game, like you get the ending where you're working with the Time Breakers on like your Saiyan. That could give you like Super Saiyan Rose, because you did like the quote evil path. But if you do the Time Patrol path, like the good path, you get Super Saiyan Blue. I think leading like doing different transformations, or maybe not like directly getting the forms, but maybe you unlock a specific mentor. Like you could do like the whole like Time Breaker path, and then that gives you like Zamasu as your mentor. So then now you can get Rose by training with Zamasu. But to get blue, you have to do the good path, and that unlocks Whis as your mentor. Something like that, because the Xenoverse usually handles the forums through mentors and stuff. So just something like that, where there's some sort of incentive to even do the different paths, besides just like, oh, I want to see how the different endings go. But I think having at least 2 different endings based on your choices would be really cool, and it would make the story feel more in depth. You could even maybe make it where it's like, certain choices will affect like the fate of certain characters, and then maybe like when you get to the final boss, the characters who are like were helping you or against you, or even the characters that are there. Like I'm thinking, like imagine you pick a certain choice that leads like future Gohan to being saved. So by the time you get to the final boss, future Gohan's actually there helping you. Versus if you didn't save him, he's not there anymore. Like even if it was just for that one mission, like you did the whole game the good side, but then you did one choice that leads future Gohan to dying. He is like, you still get the good ending, just future Gohan's missing. Like little details like that changing because of your choices would be cool. I think it should just be straight up just a choice though, not like through your mentors, because I feel like that's just kind of limiting. Like you have to bring a certain person, and it's really not your choice, it's more so like what they do affects the story. But I think a choice-based story is the way to go. Absolutely. It just gives the story mode so much more replay value, because ever since I first beat Xenoverse 2, I never replayed the story. Even when I made my other characters, I never went back and actually replayed that story mode at all. I just left it as it was, and never redid it with my other characters. I was like, what's the point? There's like really no reason to. But if there's different choices, then it's kind of worth it at that point, you know? The next thing I got on my list to talk about in terms of story is the new main villain. So obviously, at the time we're recording this, like I said, it's pre-Battle Hour, pre-Future Saga Chapter 4 for Xenoverse. We don't know what Fu's fate is going to end up being. So I'm going to go into this assuming that Fu will either be like defeated or locked away, or somehow won't be the Xenoverse 3 like main villain, because that's kind of the popular theory, that he shows up in Xenoverse 3. But I think they could introduce a brand new character here, because we've seen in previous games like Fighters, introducing a new character brings a lot of popularity and eyes onto the game. So Fighters introduced in like 21. She is insanely popular after she got introduced. So I think they can introduce a new character, and it doesn't even need to be brand new. One idea I had is they could bring in Ios from Dragon Ball Heroes, which if you don't know who Ios is, she is the Supreme Kai of Time that came before the current Supreme Kai of Time we know, because the current Supreme Kai of Time, fun fact, is Cronoa. The previous one was Ios. They could bring, because I really like that plot in Heroes where she comes back and basically is like, yeah, Cronoa, I don't like the way you're running things. I'm going to take this over and make like one true timeline or whatever, which kind of gets brought up with Fu also in Xenoverse 2, where Fu talks about making like one perfect, like happy timeline. That's kind of what Ios was doing. So they could bring her in, and that, obviously she's not like a brand new original character, but putting her in a Xenoverse game would make her a very popular character. Because I thought in Heroes, I really loved her. She was like my favorite villain in Heroes. So bringing her to Xenoverse, getting more eyes on her, could make her really popular. Like I think she has the potential to become a very popular character if they do enough with her. It just kind of comes down to that, like what are they going to do enough with her, which I'm pretty confident for Xenoverse 3 story. But obviously they could just bring in Fu or some other brand new character, but I don't think Toa and Mira are going to directly be the main villains here, because that was one thing I really loved in Xenoverse 1, is that Toa and Mira were involved, but the real main villain here was Demigra. He was kind of lurking in the background the whole time, and I really love Xenoverse 1 story for that. Where Xenoverse 2, it was just Toa and Mira the whole time, and then like the other, like they brought like Turles and Slug and all the movie villains for some reason. But having Demigra or some sort of other like original character, which like I think Ios would be a good pick here, could be interesting. But of course we could always get Fu still or whatever like that. I think another thing that would be cool to do during the story is more little mini games. So I know we talked about the loading screen mini games, but these ones I mean more so, like for example, I was playing through the Xenoverse 2 DLC for the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament, and it had me thinking, because there's a point in that story where your character isn't able to fight right away because you have to sit there and take a test, because you know that's part of the lore where you have to do the test for the Universe 6 and 7 tournament to be able to enter. Obviously they mostly did that because like Botamo, Magetta aren't in the game, so they needed your character to be distracted. But in my head I was like, what if they actually let us like do the test though? Like it could be very simple and you just pick like a multiple choice or whatever. But imagine little mini games like that during the story, where if there's little lore things like, you know, having to do the test. Or another one I thought of is if they include Daima, when Tamagami 3 like shuffles the cups, having you actually have to pick that. I think little mini games like that could make the story feel even more immersive and like, you know, just fun little things. They could get really creative with it. But those are two I was thinking of. Like, imagine you can actually take the test, and even if we're going like choice-based story, maybe like failing the test actually leads to a different outcome, for example. Or like picking the wrong cup in the Daima minigame leads to a different outcome. Or, you know, you could just make it like a little minigame just for fun, and maybe see like, you know, who scores. Maybe if you score like well enough on the test, you get like certain rewards. Or if you like do the cup minigame quick enough, you get like certain rewards. Like they could do a lot of stuff to make this like really, really interesting and more immersive. Now, another thing that I really loved about Xenoverse 2's most recent DLC, which I talked about before, Future Saga Chapter 3, there was little detail, again, just a really small detail that I thought was really sick. At the end of that DLC, which again, spoilers, this one's an actual spoilers if you haven't played it, because, you know, that's the most recent DLC. But at the end of that DLC, there's a point where Frieza gets Supreme Kai time powers, right? And they did, I don't know what it is, but I just found this really, really cool. During that mission, Frieza at some point resets time. And like, you know, you do the whole quest, like you're fighting through the mission, it resets time, and it actually brings you back to the initial menu as if you're starting a quest. I don't know why, but that was really cool. Like the little, like it shows like the title of the quest, and then spinning around your character, you have to click start. And then Frieza also resets your moves and your stats back to level 1. So just him messing around with time and it actually affecting stuff like within the gameplay. Like instead of just like, oh, he reset time and then nothing really, like it's just a lore thing, it actually affects like the HUD and your stats and that sort of thing. I think doing more stuff like that is so cool. I don't know, like I don't know, like maybe I'm just glazing, but to me, just that little detail, when I first played it, I was like, oh, that's so sick. Like, especially as someone who's played Xenoverse 2 for like the whole time it's been out, it was just so crazy going back to the default preset, like default set of moves and stuff. I'm like, I don't know why, that was just really cool to me that they had Frieza reset the mission, and then you reset like your stats and all that. Just doing more time, like messing around with time and the actual like more than just lore wise, it actually messes with like your gameplay, like your menus and your stats. Doing more stuff like that is really sick. So I think doing more of that would just really make this story a lot more, like, get me a lot more invested and make it a lot more fun. And now for some like smaller details, I think the OST, I think if they just go back to doing it like more rock focused, this is just a personal preference for me, but I think Dragon Ball games OSTs are always the best when they focus more on rock. Because like Xenoverse 2, for example, my favorite theme in that game is Beerus's theme. And partially because it has this really sick, just like solo, like rock guitar section. I don't know why Dragon Ball, because even older Dragon Ball games, like, you know, the Budokai Tenkaichis, the Budokai games, the Raging Blast games, like all those games had a more rock heavy OST, and I think it just fits Dragon Ball the best. That's just my personal opinion in terms of the game. Maybe that's just the American in me speaking, but I think those OSTs for the games fits really well. Like I said, Beerus' theme is just awesome. They could get creative with it too. Like I'm saying, just focus on rock, but it doesn't need to be purely rock. Like Ultra Super Villain Frieza, they went crazy with that theme. So they could do like more creative themes like that. You know, that doesn't have to all be rock, but I think most of the Xenoverse 2 OST I don't really care about, but then there's just like specific standout ones, and I wish that there was more that were on that same level as the standout ones to me. And now this is something I will harp about in every single Dragon Ball game. I think I talked about this in like Sparking Zero before and stuff, but please, for the love of God, stop doing story exclusive maps. So Xenoverse 1, for example, you have this map where Demigod breaks out of like the hourglass in the middle of Toki City, and you're actually fighting around like the ruined hourglass around Toki City. But once you beat the story, you can't play on that map anymore. And for me, it's just like, why? Like, just make those maps. I mean, I can understand maybe if it's like, you know, you couldn't develop it, like you didn't have enough time to develop it and you can't make the map properly work. I get it. But at that point, in the era that we are in now, you can always do an update for that later. Like, I get it back in like the olden days when it's like a game would drop, there's not really DLC, it's just kind of over, like there's no updates for the game. Nowadays, games consistently get updates. There's no reason to not just finish those maps and make them playable. Like, I don't know, having story exclusive maps just makes me so mad. Like, I'm glad for the most recent DLC, again, Future Saga Chapter 3, they actually added Destroyed Kanton City as a map. I love that. I was very happy that they did that. I'm like, thank you, we got a new map in the game finally, and it's something that happened in the story that is no longer exclusive to the story, because I just think that's stupid. Like, not to like bring up Sparking Zero too much, but Sparking Zero, one that like I think about immediately is Sparking Zero has the Land of the Kais from Universe 10 in the story, but it's not playable. And I'm just like, why? You have a full map there. People have been asking for maps. Just finish that map, update the game, and put it in. Like, you know, like just give us more stuff like that. I don't know. Story exclusive maps, especially in games that need more maps, just like pisses me off. Because I'm like, you can just literally add it. Like, what is stopping you? I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about for story, though. Those are my main points. So let me know down in the description if you agreed with anything I was saying, or if you have your own ideas. That's the main thing. I really want to hear what you guys think. What are your ideas that they could do focusing on the story mode? Like things you want. Like I know a lot of people talk about like the choice-based story. Like, do you want the choice-based story? What choices do you think they could add? Be as detailed and as wild as you want. I want to see everybody's ideas, and perhaps I'll do a follow-up video going over like what the community thinks for what Xenoverse 3 story should be like. But for now, that is it for me. So thank y'all for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button, and share this video around to your grandma, grandpa, manager, coworkers, everyone to share it to. And yeah, let me know about your ideas for Xenoverse 3. And yeah, until next time, I will see y'all later, and peace. Have a good day or night, y'all, and I will see you next time.